Hello and welcome to this edition of BQ Prime Brandsmiths, which are conversations on the alignment of marketing, business, and technology. Today we have with us a very unique gentleman who comes from a very unique industry. Nutraceuticals is not something that most of you would have really heard of. We've heard of pharma, we've heard of nutrition, etc. But what Amit Srivastava, the founder and chief catalyst at Nutrify Today, is doing is revolutionizing an industry, literally creating an industry when it comes to nutraceuticals. In fact, he's just completed a very large summit in Mumbai called the Nutrify Today Summit, and which was all about really getting India center stage in the global revolution on nutraceuticals. So Amit, thank you so much for joining us today on BQ Prime Brandsmiths. And even as we begin, I wanted to really ask you about the size and scope of the nutraceutical industry and why this needs to be a focus industry for India.
Iowa, the global nutraceutical market is about $412 billion US, of which 60% is United States. Substantial amount, which is about 20%, is China. India is right now just 2% of the total global share. But you know what? India has turned out to be the backyard for nutraceutical industry. So the next big source of innovation comes from India, but leveraged by other countries. And India doesn't get much of it. At the same time, our neighboring countries, particularly China, make the best use of the Indian knowledge resources, right, from Ayurveda, and leverage it in the larger markets like in the United States, and as well as in Europe. So I think it is high time that India needs to focus on this, because 412 billion is not a small market. That is one. Second is that due to COVID, there's been a larger acceptance of nutraceuticals seriously amongst the consumers worldwide, and it has shown impact on the substantial growth of nutraceuticals worldwide. Look at India. It used to be, with pre-COVID, used to be around 10%, and then all of a sudden, during COVID, of course, it went skyrocketing, but it has settled down at about like 17, 18%, which is substantially great delta from what was just 3 years back, right? That is one. Second is why India should focus on this is because the world is tapping into a deep knowledge bank of Ayurveda. Thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister and Ministry of Ayush, they've done a great job of selling the concept Ayurveda. But substantial leverage of that is being done by our neighboring countries. So when you talk of the plants from Ayurveda, a lot of discovery do happen in India in terms of bioactive isolation, but the real commercialization, mass production of active nutraceutical ingredients happen elsewhere, not in India. So that has to be brought back to India. India has all it needs to be the largest exporter of nutraceuticals. Second, it is also strong in pharmaceuticals. A lot of expertise of pharmaceuticals in product development or active ingredient development rubs onto the field of nutraceuticals. So India's strength as pharmaceutical is something that India should leverage to showcase advanced application in nutraceuticals. And hence, so just to let you know that we took a neutral decision that while Nutrify Today is all about helping the global supply chain get democratized with India as a central hub, but then we went ahead and collaborated with the principal scientific advisor to Government of India, and we created, with his guidance, the Nutraceutical Task Force. And Nutraceutical Task Force has now set up a mission 100 billion nutraceutical India. So $100 billion nutraceutical India is quite aspirational, but not just aspirational. We have done substantial mathematics to understand where and how will this number come. And it requires a lot of policy changes. It requires a lot of category creation. Just to let you know, India didn't even recognize nutraceuticals as an industry But happy to share, because of this nutraceutical task force about 2 months back, Ministry of Commerce has given a legal entity to nutraceutical function, and they have given a panel status under Shifexel, which is focused at developing export channels for nutraceutical industry. So that's one big success that has happened. Then, of course, other areas like setting up PLI schemes, or setting up incubation hubs. So there are various activities that's happening around, with, of course, expertise of pharmaceuticals in place. India is bound to be not only touching the big number of $100 billion nutraceutical industry, but the world focus, which the world has been looking at alternate channels. And till now, India was under the radar. All of a sudden, India has come into the limelight. And it can be very much evident. You just mentioned about the C-suite summit that Nutrify Today organized. You'll be surprised. 2 years back, when I talked of Nutrify C-suite summit, someone from far West America, western part of America, told, you know what, if I have to fly that long distance, I would rather go to China, because the trade and the business is there. Why India? To the reality is that 40 countries, 40 countries, CEOs and CXOs attended the C-suite summit, which happened just 2 weeks back in Mumbai. So this gives a very strong signal that India is already moving to be on the center stage. And there's a mission that everyone is believing into, not only in India, but worldwide. So the Indian industry, the global industry is coming together to make sure that this 100 billion happens, because it's not only for India, the rest of the world will also benefit out of it. And happy to share that India will be the second largest market and industry, just after US, once we achieve this number.
Congrats, Amit. I think that's really a very remarkable achievement, right? If in 2 years somebody tells you, that they wouldn't attend if it wasn't in China, to where 40 countries are attending today, and it's really fascinating also, because we have the knowledge base, which is ancient Ayurveda and all of that.
Yeah.
But really, I think it's the adding the modern scientific inputs, which is perhaps what is needed, and of course the marketing quotient, right? And here again, you spoke about the Honorable Prime Minister, and I'm reminded yesterday of the state banquet at the White House, wherein millets were the focus, and this has been a focus area for the Prime Minister, and how India has been able to bring millets front and center in the world. So it's a very similar example. So I wanted to really ask you, given these challenges, how are you at Nutrify Today? And you spoke about how Nutrify Today is really helping set up global supply chains for nutraceuticals with India at its core. How are you changing perceptions in this domain? And how is Nutrify Today really helping build a strong nutraceutical industry in this country?
While I just shared that's social part of Nutrify Today, which is working with government to make India the larger base. But other than that, Nutrify Today is a tech platform. And again, it's very interesting, because when you talk of tech platform or tech products, which is of global in nature, such kind of technologies and products have always been from the United States or China. India has produced some, but predominantly India has been a service IT industry, right? Happy to share that Nutrify Today actually went ahead and created world's first artificial intelligence platform. We call it as precision intelligence platform, because we are dealing with health. And when it comes to health, it better be precision. It cannot be artificial and subjective. It has to be very precise. This is a very interesting artificial intelligence platform that helps companies worldwide, as well as in India, leverage business opportunities based on merit and not based on contacts. See, you may be a great innovator in India, but you don't have network in place, and that's where most of the innovations die, right? But this technology reads your innovation and also matches it to the companies which are developing similar product that requires your innovation, and it does the matchmaking and triggers a message to the commercialization company in India or outside of India, and sets up a meeting with these innovators. As a result, the innovators have been able to commercialize the innovations worldwide. So all of a sudden, Indian innovation, which were dying in the remote part of small towns in India, have started gaining global recognition using this platform. But then, besides this, uh, this technology platform is also helping companies, large commercialization companies, ideate to commercialize at half the time with double the products being launched. So this is a disruption, complete disruption, where companies are depending on this platform for their next portfolio design, which actually happens over a cup of coffee. It's a 4 months of work that gets done in just while you're finishing up your coffee. So when you do all this, and it's of course purely made in India and serving the worldwide. Okay. Uh, when you do this, it brings in a complementing outcome. See, on one side, we are talking the larger India, $100 billion. Then you need to see action, right? While government is taking action, as I told you, right from panel to PLI being designed and so on. But what is industry doing? So one thing is India all of a sudden has a technology which is now serving the world across the world. So when I say innovator out of India into the rest of the world, it's vice versa. Even a guy sitting in center of Africa could actually access India purely if there's a merit on the innovation. So it's totally democratization of supply chain, which was earlier ruled by handful of people who had their own networks. So either you're in that network or you're doomed. Okay. Now, if you have a merit, world is a playground using this technology. And because it's from India, so people get to know India better. And whatever we do, today's C-suite summit, as I told you, that 40 countries came down. So it's not only just we did that summit, so people came down, they never came to India. Nutra industry never came to India. It's only last 2 years that they've started looking and coming to India. That's purely because the kind of innovation we are taking to the market, the way we are promoting India as $100 billion, and the way the world is accepting it, the way India is giving out new technologies like this technology platform, which world is benefiting out of, and they're coming to know that it is out of India. It is all together complementing and pasting a strong India and a strong technology base of India. Now, although this is IT technology, but at the same time, what we are doing, we're taking the nutraceutical ingredient innovation from India or rest of the world, connect and do business using artificial intelligence, or let me call it precision intelligence technology and so on. So that's how we are helping make a bigger picture to the world, both from the country as well as the technology, and helping the industry, because till the time people don't take benefit, all this remains a silver screen story, right? We have amazing success stories. I'm not supposed to be talking brands here, but there are enough brands happy to share at different forum, which have gone from a small town like Guntur. Many would not even know, even in India, about this town. Innovation reaching to United States and Europe. For 20 years of research, nowhere to go. And then this technology, the products is all over Europe and United States. So this is one such, without telling the brand success story, just I'm sharing that it's taking India to a different level.
Amit, we would love to hear about some of these brands, because I think these are inspirational stories,
Sure.
right? These.
So let me narrate a very real story. Dr. Dr. Shastri, he is a PhD in Ayurveda. He has spent over 25 years of research in creating nanoparticles of Ayurvedic ingredients. He lives in the suburbs of town Guntur. In his 25 to 30 years of research, he could create standardized nanoparticles. He conducted various clinical trials in and around hospitals of Guntur, wherever he had contacts. He could prove amazing outcomes, but then at the end of the day, Yes, he got national award. He got some projects from government, so that kept him surviving. So, in something like annual business, you would have got like 1 crore rupees. Okay, and then comes the technology. So he was very hesitant. He had given up in his life that after 30 years, 1 crore for such an amazing innovation of creating nanoparticles of 150 Ayurvedic plants. It's not just one or two. Uh, so he was very hesitant even getting onto the platform. Like, in 25 you have not achieved anything. What great are you going to do? You'd be amazed. In 1 year, there's a company in Switzerland, Euro Alliance. They found them, and they were looking at launching nutraceutical portfolio in the United States, and they found this work very innovative, and they took the platform help from picking up this innovative nanoparticles and then configuring it in a very unique format, which is mouth dissolving strip, out of another startup from India in Hyderabad. Okay, and then repackaged it in Switzerland and launched it in America, of course, as a Swiss company. But the brand is Nanoveda. So Nano comes from the innovation of Dr. Shastri, a person who has lived in almost semi-village, so suburbs of Guntur is, small. Guntur itself is a small town. 30 years or 25 years of work with no outcome, and 1 year, today he's almost earning about 4 to 5 million US dollars every year, purely because of the supply chain he has accessed, and most of his products are being sold in US, Europe. Very recently, Euro Alliance, out of giving back to India, have launched Nanoveda in India. Now the product is of course available on Amazon.in. So this is one interesting story, that how technology, and you know what, till now, the founders of Euro Alliance haven't met Dr. Shastri, but the business continues. And the guys in the US who are doing the sales and marketing haven't met Dr. Shastri, but the business continues. So right now, the credibility ownership is of Nutrify Today. So they're trusting the supply chain of Nutrify Today. They're trusting the quality of innovation that Nutrify Today brings in, right? And for them, it's business that matters. So that's how it's going on. So there are many such examples. A lot of people, for example, a lot of people got inspired using this platform to quit their jobs and start the business. In fact, one of the company, Esper Nutrition, which possibly is world's first, or maybe hardly could be second, to have an entire portfolio of nutrition only for cancer. So there's no company in this world who, other than them, who has got nutrition product for different cancer conditions and different stage of chemotherapy. And these nutritions work with drugs to reduce the chemo load onto patient and help improve the survival rate. 30% of deaths happen purely out of malnutrition, cachexia. They have been able to bring down the deaths because of cachexia, and it is clinically studied, and the product has been approved in NHS UK for government supplies and so on. So a person leaving a job with some innovative idea on research, using the networking of Nutrify Today, raised his funding from a very large venture fund, and then commercialized it not only in India, but in other countries like, as I said, UK, Africa, Philippines, and then still expanding. So this is, like nowhere, because once you are an employee in a company, you're lost in that ecosystem, and not everyone dares to do a business. And when you get onto your feet, the biggest problem is the resources, the network. They don't exist. And this becomes, and Nutrify Today is a democratic platform. So for me, everyone is great. If you have innovation, if you have an idea, plug on and do the business. And we don't even charge them. We generate revenue purely by creating business and not charging upfront to anyone. So it doesn't hurt anyone upfront.
Well, just like nutraceuticals, right? Doesn't hurt anyone, just benefits everybody. I think that's the promise of Ayurveda, to which is at the heart of Indian nutraceuticals. So, Amit, this is obviously a fascinating platform. You really told us some fascinating stories. More power to you, more power to the AI you've developed, which is really bringing science from ancient India into the modern world and benefiting the globe. So tell me one thing, when it comes to marketing, right? How do nutraceutical companies really market smarter? Because like you said, right, often, people think that China has the technology and they are doing it, even though the science and underlying it could be Indian. How do they market smarter and help? How do you help people understand India's unique positioning in this domain?
See, to answer this question, we must first understand that nutraceutical is an evidence-based science. So that means, see, when you eat or when you consume turmeric at home, it's a plant part. But when you consume curcuminoids are the bioactive of that turmeric. And it is found like 0.3 to 0.5% in a turmeric. So the color that you see, the characteristic that you see comes from that small bioactive. And it is this bioactive which has all the medicinal properties that we all know of. So first thing is identifying the bioactive of a plant, whether you talk of Brahmi, which is very commonly consumed. But when we talk of bioactives, all of a sudden it becomes bacosides. So these are the bioactive chemicals found in these plants. So isolation of it, standardization, and then doing clinical studies to prove that this really works in that health outcome. So now you have a modern science standardization and proof that this product works. Okay. It is not easy the way I tell here on an interview. It can take you years together before you arrive at that. And the bigger challenge is, even if you have an ingredient, how do you make a great formulation that will deliver the health outcome that you intend to do? So one approach is spend another 2 years doing clinical studies and then coming out with a product. So as you spend time, you are spending resources, revenue, not the resources, the money, and so on. That leads to cost escalation of a product. Now, what we did is one of the application of artificial intelligence is Nutrify Genie, and this is world's first technology that actually helps companies not spend 2 years discovering the genie. You need to know what you want. So you want to get into eye health, or you want to get into, for example, diabetic neuropathy pain management. That definition is enough, and you need to define which country you want to launch. The genie picks up the law of the land, picks up the ingredients, configures a label claim and a formula, and tells you that these are the formulas that you can do. And for justifying these formulas, we have over 1.2 million clinical papers from worldwide, which reads and tells you, okay, these are the 20 papers, clinical papers that justify this, and that would make you very unique. So now for companies to be smarter, they don't really have to spend years together. They have to work with Nutrify Genie, because this, by the time you start working on Genie, it would be 2 hours or 3 hours. You'll have a complete portfolio formula with all clinical backup. It will also tell you these are the areas you could even go ahead and file an IP. So within a day, you also know that, by the way, if you pick up this product formula and do a clinical trial, you have a very high chance of getting a patent on that product. Okay, so now the chances of number of patents coming out of using Nutrify Genie, or even if you don't want to apply for patent, but just coming up with a product that will deliver the outcome and which is differentiated. So differentiation initially is the science, rationale, that is being done by Genie, because it's going to tell you all the ingredients, all the clinical papers, why it's required. So there's a scientific justification, okay? When you make a cocktail of ingredients for some health, for example, eye health, at least you know that there are enough clinical studies from third party that is available to prove that this cocktail is great and it will work, rather than just picking up, mixing up something and then getting into the market. That is where the problem is. That problem area, we are solving it using this technology. You can go to market faster in 9 months compared to 2 years, and with maybe 50 products compared to 5 products in 2 years. So that makes company very smart, very differentiated, and they're now able to focus more on business expansion rather than trying to invest in what next. What next is the Nutrify Genie.
Fascinating, Amit. So my final question to you, after hearing, and this is obviously we could speak hours on this, but we have a time limit. So my final question is, what does really the government and need to do to build this, this ecosystem to ensure that India occupies its rightful place as a global hub for nutraceuticals based on our history, based on our strengths? And, what do you see as really the bright potential, maybe a year or 5 years from now that we can achieve?
Okay. See, for any industry to evolve, it requires a couple of support function, and I call it as pillars of growth. So Nutraceutical Task Force has already identified the pillars of growth. Let me list here. The first is medicinal plant farming. Second is ANI. Like you in pharmaceuticals, you've got API. In nutraceutical, ANI, active nutraceutical ingredient. The third is the formulation dosage industry. Like in pharmaceuticals, the formulation is a tablet, capsule, syrups, and so on. Same with nutraceuticals. The fourth is the incubation ecosystem of India, and for startup incubation. And the fifth is academia. Now that these 5 have been enlisted, the Nutraceutical Task Force, the first, of course, was let's get status, entity recognition. So we got that. Then, of course, for example, for medicinal plant farming, one of the major hurdles being, Biodiversity Act of India, which is now being evaluated, reevaluated to modify it so that this sector grows. So it's a very interesting industry where right from farm to inside your body, the entire supply chain requires not only the medicinal standardization of the farming, to quality of extraction, certification, traceability system. So these 5 pillars will not only support the creation of qualitative ingredients and the products from India, but also build capacity. Capacity is academia needs to produce trained nutraceutical professionals. Currently, India doesn't have it. There's no institution in India which has a detailed nutraceutical course. Okay, so that has come to the cognizance of task force. So that is one area being worked upon. Second area is, of course, incubation hub. Very happy to share that a lot of existing incubation hubs under BIRAC or under Niti Aayog, Atal Incubation Center, they have come forward to also include nutraceutical as a category for incubating the startups in the country who are working on nutraceuticals. Already there are a lot of startups which have now started leveraging infrastructure of IITs for the nutraceutical innovation. So that's a big thing. So now Nutra innovations can be done in India using large infrastructure, right from IIT to CCMB Hyderabad and so on. So that's one good segment that has already started. And the larger is, of course, the Biodiversity Act, supporting ANI industry, so coming up with PLI scheme, supporting the dosage formulation, coming up with PLI scheme, helping the compromised companies to be filtered out. You must be aware that a week back, FSSAI made an announcement, warning the fly-by-night operators, and then they conducted multiple raids in some parts of the country and have, ban those companies, penalize those companies. So it's a signal that the world will also appreciate that India is now becoming the responsible nutraceutical hub. And these five pillars that I mentioned are being, energized using nutraceutical task force and interministerial participation. While there's a lot of enforcement that government bodies are now taking forward. What FSSAI did is very interesting because at least it will start filtering out the fly-by-night operators out of India and leaving behind the responsible nutraceutical companies, and also encouraging international players to enter India, because now they will not have to deal with fly-by-night operator at half the price with some weird claims, which goes under the radar through FSSAI, not approved by FSSAI. All this will go away. So these five pillars, it will take time, but every year progression is assured. Very soon you'll get to hear PLI scheme, which is going to be the first ever PLI scheme in the country for nutraceuticals. Already Ministry of Commerce, Chef Excel is working on HSN codes. The day they are published, it will be world's first. India will be the first country to come up with HSN codes for nutraceutical. No one actually has it in the world. Okay. So a lot of stuff is cooking up. The world will see it every year.
Well, on that note, Amit, that's a very, very positive note. That's a very, very optimistic note. Thank you for taking us through what you are doing at Nutrify today. Thank you for helping us understand the technology and the artificial intelligence that is really powering this industry from often small villages and towns in India, and growing not just businesses, growing, helping entrepreneurs, creating giant businesses, but really taking this across the world and helping India occupy its rightful place. So, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, that was Amit Srivastava, founder and chief Catalyx Nutrify Today, a responsible nutrition business enablement market platform who's been doing some wonderful things with nutraceuticals. And if you want to know more, please go to nutrifytoday.com. Thank you so much for being once again on this edition of BQ Prime Brandsmiths, which are conversations on the alignment of marketing, business, and technology. Thank you, everybody, and thank you especially to you, Amit.
Thank you very much. You're most welcome.